Mm, Salakia. Let me see where we're going with this one before we get started, real quick. So, all right. Shalom Israel, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Thumb to the brothers, Yahweh Shemal Thumb Bashem Yahweh to the sisters. This is law. This is Wednesday law class. Topic we're gonna be getting into is the true baptism, right? So, what do we know about the baptism? Baptism is a process of someone. I mean, well, this is a process that was ordained from John the Baptist, and um, what he would do was, in order to be able to be forgiven and a sign of change, you would be taken into a river and then dunked into the river, and then that would be a sign that you were baptized physically, right? Now, ever since Christ came on the scene, it's been a new baptism, right? There's a new way of being baptized. It's not by you going to the specific person and being dunked into the water. Now it's more of a spiritual way of being baptized. So we'll get into all that, but we have to. What we're going to do is we're going to understand where the baptism came from and who is John the Baptist, right? Um, okay, let's see. I'm gonna start off with the birth of John the Baptist, and we can start that at Luke 1:57. So the book of Luke, chapter 1, verse 57 says, "Now Elizabeth's full time came that she should." Let's see. Yeah, we just do that real quick. That she should be delivered, and she brought forth a son, and her neighbors and her cousins heard how the Lord had showed great mercy upon her, and they rejoiced with her. And it came to pass that on the eighth day they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zacharias, after the name of his father. And his mother answered and said, Not so, but he shall be called John. And they can't stand this damn app. And they made signs to his father how he would have him called. And he asked for a writing table and wrote, saying, His name is John. Okay, so John is pretty much, his background story is pretty much the same as him coming in was pretty much the same as Christ coming in. His mom was filled with, the Holy Spirit, which, her being into she was put into the mood to want to do an action that causes people to, procreate. That's the best way I could put it. But she lays with her husband, she gets pregnant, and she has a baby. And this is John the Baptist. This is the origin story of John the Baptist. It starts at Luke 1 and 57. So getting into it, John becomes a prophet, and he's one of the greatest prophets. You know what I mean? Christ says so himself, and we'll get into that. But John the Baptist, he we'll get into where he messed up at too. But really, the main focus is going to be what is the actual true baptism instead of just, you know what I mean, because to this day you still have, you know what I mean, these Christian churches, they still baptize with water, they still, you know what I mean, dunk, you know what I mean, this place full of sinners in the water so they can come up wet and still be a sinner coming up wet, and they think that they're accomplishing something and being forgiven for the wicked things that they do because of this process of just being dunked in the water by this pastor who's also unlearned from the scriptures and who's also ignorant of the scriptures. So let's keep going. Let's see what I got here. Um, it says Proverbs or Psalms. Okay, let me go to this real quick. Let me see. Let's lock it, y'all. So, okay, so we'll do. Let's see. Let me check Hebrews 11:3. Hebrews 11:3. Let's see. The book of Hebrews, chapter 11 and verse 3. Let me read it real quick and see if it correlates with the lesson. It says, "Through faith we understand that the worlds the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear." Let me check the sound real quick and make sure that we got a sound because I didn't even check that. Let me do a sound check real quick so I can. Test it one two. Okay, let's do it. All right, so all right, so we can get into back into John the Baptist. Let me see. Let me see. So like I'm going through my notes trying to find my John the Baptist precepts. I kind of just rushed up in here and just pressed the live button. Okay, so those are not. Okay, so let's get into um, Christ and John the Baptist, right? So let's see. So John the Baptist was on the scene baptizing people. He was a prophet, you know what I mean? And he was, you know what I mean, one of the greatest prophets, right? So he was supposed to, let's get in when he talks about Christ. Hey, Shalom says what's going on. Okay, so that's John 1 and 27. I was just right there too. Still locking. All right, so John 1 and 27. John 1 and 27. Man, shall I read 26? I'll read 24. So the book of John, chapter 1 and 24 says, And they which were sent were of the Pharisees, and they asked him and said unto him, why baptizest thou then, if thou be not that Christ, nor Elias, neither that prophet? John answered them, saying, I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you, whom ye know not. He it is, who coming after me is preferred before me, whose shoes latchet I am not worthy to unloose. So this right here, what the heck is that? What kind of, I don't know what profile that is. I'm so lucky. But yeah, so what we have here is, what I mean, John openly admitting that he baptizes with water. Okay, he's baptizing with water, and that was what he was sent to do. But Christ, he knew who Christ was. Christ was coming on the scene. Christ was performing miracles. Christ was supposed to be the end all be all when it comes to sacrifices for sin. John the Baptist knew these things, and he said that, what I mean, there's one that comes after me, and he baptizes with fire, not actual physical fire, but what he's saying is that his process of the baptism is not going to be it's not going to be in a physical sense. It's not going to be like you have to literally catch on fire. Like he's going to baptize you with his teachings, with his word. You know what I'm saying? This is John the Baptist admitting to that. Like John the Baptist is actually saying that, what I mean, Christ is coming. Christ is greater than him. You know what I mean? In a way that he's not even great enough to even, what I mean, latch at his shoes. So you see what you're seeing right now is an actual statement saying that, what I mean, once Christ comes, it's not so much. It's not about the water baptism anymore. You know what I mean? This is what John's saying. Like, so if you see a process that's being done when the person who created the process is telling you that this will no longer be effective as soon as this particular person does this, then why is it that we still see people saying that the only way that you're going to be saved is going to be through baptism of water? Like you have to literally be baptized in water in order to wash your sins away. When that statement alone is already telling you that, what I mean, it's not that process is not a working process anymore because Christ was on the scene. Christ already fulfilled what he was supposed to do. You know what I mean? As far as the sacrifice, as far as the prophecy of what he is going to do, that's still coming into play. And you can see everything that's happening in the world today, everything that's going on with all of the, what I mean, madness that's going on. You can see that, what I mean, the that Christ is setting the stage for him to come in and for him to cause judgment on all these wicked nations who pretty much destroyed his people. You know what I mean? So he said he's setting the stage up right now. He's getting everything already set up. So the prophecy of everything is not complete when it comes to Christ. But for him as far as the sacrifice part of it, he fulfilled that. He died. He lived on the earth. He spent his day in and day out. You know what I mean? Having to be perfect day in and day out. You know what I mean? Which is very, very, very sacrificial already within itself. You know what I mean? To have to live your life perfectly every day. You know what I mean? From birth all the way to your last breaths. Especially knowing, you know what I mean, you knowing what's to come, knowing that you have to be the sacrificial lamb. You know what I mean? It's very tempting to want to just, when you dealing with that much stress, it's very tempting to want to just go left and do the wrong thing just to, you know what I mean, get yourself out of that mindset of, oh yeah, I have to do this and I have to do that. Like Christ could have easily folded at any time off of the things that he had to deal with on a day in and day out basis. He could have easily folded, but you know what I mean, he chose to live his life out every day perfectly. And I say every day like that because it's a day in and day out process. It's not just oh, he lived his life and he knew what he had to do and he just did it and got it over with. No. Like Christ's sacrifice was a day to day sacrifice. It wasn't just until his death. You know what I mean? Mind you, he had to know that he was going to die. Like if somebody gave you your time period of when you were going to die, like you gonna still, you know what I mean, accept the boundaries that are put into your life of things that you can and cannot do. Like no, you're gonna try to wow out and do whatever makes you feel good about yourself. You know what I mean? Until that last day comes. You know what I mean? Per se. And I'm just speaking about that out of just like my own perspective because it's more so like, I mean, Christ didn't do it. Christ did not do it. He didn't fold. He didn't allow the pressure to become so great to the point where he had a slip up or a mess up. No, he lived perfectly each day. And that's something that needs to be actually like really taken in and taken serious. Like you don't really get that type of talk when it comes to your Christian churches and when it comes to like, you know what I mean, more so it's a more so of a talk just for your own personal gain. But you really don't really hear about or get to feel the true um the true effects of the day in and day out life that Christ had to live. You know what I mean? Especially during that time period too. You know what I mean? Israel was destroyed. Israel was still in poverty. You know what I mean? On the bottom, like you know what I mean? Like so, Christ is going. Not only is he becoming a sacrifice for us, and he's doing this. He's sacrificing each and every day, but he's sacrificing in the same lifestyle that we're living today. You know what I mean? On the bottom, in the ghettos and in poverty. You know what I'm saying? So he's dealing with all those things and still setting the example that he is the Messiah. He's the Savior. You know what I'm saying? Like he's living his life out as if it's not his life. It's the life of Israel's. You know what I mean? Because one slip up and there would be, you know what I mean, our people just be, I mean, just as destroyed as we are right now. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Just as destroyed as we are right now, we're destroyed, but we have an opportunity for salvation. And it's prophesied that salvation will come to us. You know what I'm saying? It's prophesied that salvation is going to come to us. It's prophesied that we will be back on top, but we will be under rulership and we will be under Christ's government. You know what I'm saying? We'll be under Christ's government. Christ is going to set the law, and everyone would have no choice but to follow that law, right? So getting into Christ, you know what I'm saying? John the Baptist is saying that Christ is coming, and this is why Christ is, you know what I mean, someone so great to the point where he felt like he put out that statement that I shouldn't I'm not even great enough to be able to latch his shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why his prophecies are so great. You know what I mean? So it wasn't so much about John the Baptist, but John the Baptist made it about himself. You know what I mean? Once John the Baptist went through his troubles, well, first he was, you know what I mean, he continued to baptize after he baptized Christ. You know what I mean? And Christ even said that he suffered for him to baptize him. Like he'll suffer. Okay, let's go to it. Let me get to it real quick. Let's see. Matthew's 3 and 13. Let's see. So we're gonna get into um, John the Baptist actually baptizing Christ. Let's see. Okay, so the book of Matthew, chapter 3, and verse 13. Yeah, that's a fact. You should be grateful. You should be grateful that, Christ did everything he had to do on a day in and day out basis. And it's up for us to love our people enough to be able to suffer day in and day out just the same way that Christ did. You know what I'm saying? Because once you get into this truth, you know what I'm saying, like you're enduring to the end. You know what I mean? So we will have to we'll have to endure things that Christ endured, or we'll have to endure things that puts us in like a uncomfortable position where the main focus is to think about the lifestyle that Christ lived. You know what I'm saying? That's the main thing, because first of all, he didn't have an easy death. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad I'm making this about Christ too, because Christ is the true baptism. His lifestyle, his way, his laws, his his way of living is the actual true baptism. You know what I'm saying? He was perfect. And it's up for us to be like him, and that's being baptized. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that's pretty much what it is. Like Christ is the true baptism. You know what I mean? John the Baptist said it in that precept that we just read. You know what I mean? In Luke. So, you know what I mean? The fact that we still see it, the fact that we still see that people are being baptized in water and that process is still being done, it already shows you of where the ignorance is at. You know what I mean? Where the people who really don't understand the true scriptures of this Bible really lay at, because you once you see that in the scripture, you got to think to yourself, okay, well, if John the Baptist is saying himself that, this 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 process is no longer effective once Christ comes along, then why is it that we still do it? You know what I mean? Why do we still do it? And that's the big question. That's the real question that you should ask yourself. So if you're still within that spirit realm of Christianity, which that spirit realm is more so like, okay, you know what I mean? You don't want to step out of anything that is non-Christian, because you feel like that anything outside of Christianity is not of God. So you are stuck in that mindset of thinking that Christianity is the only true source to get to the Most High. You know what I mean? So you don't particularly want to look into anything else. You don't want to envision yourself learning anything other than what you learn from your pastor. You know what I mean? Because if you do and you step out of your boundaries, then you are stepping out of God's realm and God's actual true teachings and everything like that, which is completely untrue. That's a wicked spirit. That's a spirit of fear. That's a spirit that is not of the Most High. The Most High doesn't want you to be afraid. Um, the Most High doesn't want you, like it. The Most High doesn't want you to be afraid to, like, you should be afraid to serve other gods, of course. But when you're looking into the true scriptures of the Bible, if someone's telling you something that is literally written within the scriptures of the Bible, why would you be afraid of that? It's quote unquote in the Bible, like it's literally word for word in the Bible. So why would you be afraid of what's written in the Bible? Now, if somebody's telling you something that's not written in the Bible, that's something you should be afraid of. But you get a lot of that when you're dealing with churches, and when you're dealing with Catholic churches, and you know what I mean, Muslim mosques and all that stuff like that. Like you get a lot of stuff that's not even written in the scriptures. Like, so what are you going to follow? Are you going to follow something that somebody told you that their perspective of what the Most High is, or are you going to follow the actual true God that's, you know what I mean, the prophets left word for word, verbatim, who the Most High who the Most High is, what his expectations are. You know what I'm saying? He left that here for us in these scriptures. So what are you going to do? You sit here and you see that, you know what I mean, within these teachings already, we already seen that John the Baptist admits that the water baptism is not no longer effective once Christ steps on the scene. Now Christ stepped on the scene. That's why Christians wear those, you know what I mean, chains with Caesar Borgia on their neck. You know what I'm saying? Hung up on their neck. So you're acknowledging the fact that Christ was already on the scene and he died for the sins of the Israelites. You know what I'm saying? You're acknowledging the fact that he died. So if he did die and if he was on the scene, then obviously within that scripture alone, it's saying to you that that water baptism is no longer effective, right? So let's keep getting into it. So let's get into, you know what I mean, when Christ goes to John the Baptist. Christ goes to John the Baptist and he allows him to do that process on him because that should have been the end all be all. Because John the Baptist is going to acknowledge the fact that I shouldn't be baptizing you, you should be baptizing me. You know what I mean? So John the Baptist is, mine is water baptism now. Um, I wouldn't say so much water baptism. You know, you know what I mean. Renewal of the mind. Okay, first of all, when you're truly baptizing, you're okay. So we're probably about to skip all the way to the end, man. But screw it. We'll just do it. We started late anyway, so we'll just get this one out the way real quick. So renewal of the mind is renewal of the mind, the spirit, and the body. Like you have to physically stop sinning. You have to mentally stop sinning. You have to spiritually stop sinning. You can't you can't um you can't just physically stop sinning and then you just are miserable because you can't sin. You know what I'm saying? You can't really just you can't just sit there and be like, oh yeah, well I'm not smoking weed no more, but man, I wish I could just go smoke a blunt. Like man, I wish I just go. Like you have to literally do away with all of those things, and it has to be, you know what I mean, sin has to be disgusting to you, like because it's disgusting in the Most High. Like you have to be disgusted with the with you have to, and if you do have, because it's not just going to happen all in one day when you're it's not just going to be like you like how you just get dunked in the water and then that's just it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a slow process of shedding all those things up off you. You know what I'm saying? But depending on how you take it is how you take it. You know what I mean? Depending on how you want to do it is how you gonna do it. But those things have to be, if it is a sin, you have to do away with it. Those things have to be done away with. You cannot continue to live your life out dibbling and dabbling in things that are unlawful. You know what I'm saying? You have to do away with those things. So, you know what I mean? Everybody's process is different. I'm not saying that it's just gonna happen overnight. It's just gonna happen one day. Like everybody has a different process. You know what I mean? That's why when you come in here, you spend 90 days in all black. You know what I mean? As a young man, and you're learning. You know what I mean? You're learning, and you're going to get the justification of what is lawful and what's unlawful. That's why right here in the ISUPK is definitely the right place that you want to be at, because you get those 90 days for you to change, because you're going to change. If you're doing away with all those things that are sinful to you, you know what I mean, whatever it is you do, you know what I mean, everybody's different, but whatever it is to you, if you're doing away with those things, you're going to mentally and, how can I say, spiritually change. Like you're going to have a lot more. I mean, it's not for me to say, but you're just you're not going to be the same person that you were when you first stepped in, learning what the truth is. You know what I'm saying? And if you're actually following it right and you're actually shedding yourself, then you are going to be in a position where, you know what I'm saying, you are going to change. Like you're changing. Your posture's different. Your everything's gonna be different on you. You know what I'm saying? So let's see. Let me see. Uh, what was he talking about? Okay, so yeah. Um, okay, so you say you got you said you say you don't change, you got pumped and dumped and then turned out worse. Okay, so really um I wouldn't say you turned out worse because you I wouldn't you probably did things that put you back in the world, but you know what I mean, you getting knowledge of what the true right and wrong is doesn't make you worse. It's worse when you're okay. It makes you better that you know what the right and wrong is. Now, what you choose to do after that, you know what I mean, that's completely up to you. It's not going to make you worse. Yeah, you're going to be tested. Yeah, you're going to be tempted into situations where you're going to want to continue to keep doing those things. But what is that really saying about you? You know what I mean? What is that really saying about you? It's saying that you know what I mean, are you really down for this fight or not? What is it that you really want to do with yourself? Because if you feel like your sin is more stronger than you are, and your mentality and your spirit is too weak to be able to overcome those things, then that doesn't say anything about you becoming worse. That says something about you not showing up to the fight. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to fight back. You have to be able, like this is warfare. I mean, Christ was going through warfare. Christ had to go through warfare every day. Christ was literally marking the days down of his death day. Just think about having that on your spirit also. Just knowing when you're going to die. You know what I'm saying? You got to think about that too. You know what I mean? Don't make it so much about yourself all the time. Like about, oh yeah, well it just doesn't get better for me and all this whoopty whoop whoop. Put Christ on your heart for a minute. Because everything that Christ was doing, everything that Christ had to go through. Okay, so it says actually fighting back. Okay, so you know what I mean, I would definitely seek some counsel. You know what I mean? Whoever is your camp leader, I would try to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Get some answers, like for real. You know what I'm saying? But if you're fighting back, then just keep fighting. You know what I'm saying? The Most High is never going to give you anything that you can't handle. You know what I'm saying? So if you are fighting back, and if you feel like you're losing that fight, it's just because you're not fighting as hard as you should be. You still gotta have a comfort zone into the things that you're doing. So you have to give it a little bit more effort as far as like going in on those things that you feel like are overtaking you. But first of all, like, what nationality are you? Because I mean, I don't want to sit here and be speaking about things that you can overcome, and then you end up being in a situation where, because some things are just on people's spirits that they can't get rid of. You know what I mean? And those are usually the people who we call our oppressors. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so you Judite. All right, so okay, so like if you really are, I mean, it's really man. I really wish I can just go in on this type of subject. I mean, honestly, we can because there's only so much I can put in on the John the Baptist. But um, okay, so let me see real quick. Real quick. Um, okay, so all right, so you Judite. All right, so what can honestly, I want to try to like sugarcoat as much as possible, but I can't. This is just you have to stop allowing things that are on your spirit to overcome your spirit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it is that's exactly. I'm not gonna have you put it in the chat either. That you feel like you're fighting and you feel like you can't beat. You know what I mean? There's a lot of battles that we face that we feel like, you know what I mean, I'm not going to be able to beat that. I'm not going to be able to accomplish that situation. Now, depending on what that is what it is. But all I can give you, let me see, let me see, real quick. I think it's Matthew. Is it Matthew's 26 and 41? Let me see. 26 and 41. Um, um, no, that's not it. It might be Hebrews. Hebrews 4 and 12. Let me see. Sorry, I got like all my notes are like mixed up, so it's like hard for me to like find what I need to find. Let me get that fixed. Let's try Hebrews real quick. 4 and 12. Okay, so yeah, I would have to go through my notes, but I'll just tell you right now, like you're, God dang it, that's easy precepts too. I don't know why it's not in my goddamn notes right now, but the Lord's not gonna give you anything that you can't handle. You know what I mean? Whatever you're going through, there's a source of strength that's in you that you don't even know that's there. You know what I mean? But it's all about how much do you fear the Most High. That's the real true thing. Like, you know what I mean? It all goes into the fear of the Most High because you're not going to do things that you know that will. You know what I mean? When once you understand God's judgment, you understand. Once you understand God's judgment, you understand why you shouldn't play with Him like that. You know what I mean? Because you can sit here and die today, come back in another life, and then you're living in such hell, and you don't even understand why you're going through what you're going through. You know what I mean? Is because you had to be judged for the things that you did in your past life. You know what I mean? So instead of setting yourself up for failure for your next life or for the lifestyle that you'll be living in the future, and screw all that, even your kids' life, your kids' life, your kids' life. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having to have a situation where everybody has to suffer because of the things you chose to do, why don't you just stop doing what you're doing? Because the things that you do today can affect a generation to come. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're naturally made to love our children. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to be. I mean, as destroyed as our people is right now, you know what I mean, you see a lot of dislove for, you know what I mean, when it comes to like children and family and all that stuff like that. When it comes to morals in general, but you don't want to see, it's naturally in you that you don't want to see your children suffer. You know what I mean? It's naturally in you that you don't want to have to suffer. But you have to, you know what I mean, you have to put yourself in position where no one has to suffer. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to endure, of course. You're gonna have to go through some things if you are really following this truth. You're going to be tested, of course. You know what I mean? But it's how can I say it? it's an act of your what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with an L. Uh, freak. It's in the back of my head. If you can put it in the chat, just help me out. But it's the it's a test to your. God dang! I was just thought of the word and I forgot it right then and there. Loyalty. Thank you. Loyalty, and not just that. It's another word, but like you being down for your set, pretty much. You know what I mean? I forgot what the goddamn word is, but yeah, it's a test of your loyalty. Also, like you know what I mean. You have to, regardless of whatever the situations are, you have to keep working. That's what you probably do need. You know what I mean? Get into you in the classes, but you know what I mean. Get into contact with your camp leader and get some work. You know what I mean? Stay busy. You know what I mean? Get your mind off of the things that you feel like are hindering you from being able to be successful in this truth, to succeed in following the law, statutes, and commandments. You know what I'm saying? Get some work. Get some work. Get actually into this body. Figure out what's like. Go to your nearest camp leader, whatever wherever you at. Get in contact with your nearest camp leader and really step into this body and get to work. Don't just be a viewing in a classroom. Like if something is putting you in a position where you feel like I can't defeat this demon, you gotta get some work. You gotta get busy because your mind sitting over here lingering around and being able to be tested is going to put you in a position where you are going to fail every time. You don't want to. You don't. I'm not saying that you need to work 24/7 all the time, but you definitely need to go find some type of you know what I mean, find a source of getting your mind locked in and locked on to this truth for real, because you know what I mean, that whole feeling of feeling like, oh yeah, well, you know what I mean, I can't. I've been trying and I can't defeat this thing. Like, nah, you definitely can defeat whatever you're going through. You know what I mean? Regardless of how bad it is, trust me. Trust me, I know. You know what I mean? You're definitely got a way to defeat it. But and then not just that, like judging by, you know what I mean, what you're saying right now and where you're at right now, those are just going to be the beginning of the problem. So you don't want that to be too much of a problem because getting into this truth, it's a lot of things. Okay, so first of all, you know what I mean, I don't were you all I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know who you are. You saying you don't think our camp leader wants you there? Well, first of all, like it's been a lot of brothers who came in, you know what I mean, fell off and came back, got back in all black and did exactly what they had to do as far as getting back into this truth. I wouldn't say so much if they didn't want you there. It's more so of you don't want to be here because that just sounds like an excuse. You know what I'm saying? You can't sit there and bring up a perspective that you think that somebody doesn't want you there. You know what I mean? Even Commander General Yohana sent out a request for all, you know what I mean, fake Israelites to come back into this truth. You know what I'm saying? Come back into these rankings. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? They left. They were right there with them doing everything that they needed to do, and they left the truth. Now, them going and starting their own doctrines and doing things and leading people to like different type of ways of living that is not of the Most High. You know what I mean? They still had an opening to be able to come back and make it right. So I doubt that whoever you are, whatever you was going through, like it's just a no from there. Maybe you want to bring something which would not be allowed. You want to bring something in here that is not allowed in here. And that's probably what the situation is. Because we're not allowing people to want to dictate and try to make it seem as if, um, like, I'm just speaking off of, like, that's an example, like smoking weed. Like, you're not gonna come in here and try to make weed smoking. Oh yeah, because it comes from the ground, and the Lord said, you know what I mean, all fruits from the tree are, no, we're not accepting that. You know what I mean, because we know that smoking weed is a sin. So if you're trying to come in here and bring something with you that is not of what this body is doing, then you're, of course, you're going to have issues. Of course, somebody's not going to allow you to be in here. But if you coming in here and you humble yourself and you're willing to learn and you're willing to focus and you're willing to put yourself in this body and put yourself to work, you can't really say that nobody wants you up in here. It's just depending on whatever you're doing, you know what I'm saying, or what you're trying to bring. You know what I mean? Like, I see, like, on your profile picture, you got Satan, you know what I mean, or the Baphomet on your I wouldn't say Satan, but you got the Baphomet on your profile picture. Like, what is that about? And your name, like, what is that about? You know what I mean, like, I don't get it. So you have to make it make sense. You know what I mean? If you are willing to, because you ain't been disrespectful within, you know what I mean, your comments in the chat. So if you haven't been disrespectful, then I mean, it should be the same way when you step into class. Like, I don't know what you're about and I don't know what you're doing, but all in all, you know what I mean, your profile picture is very telling. So I would just, you know what I mean, I would I would get rid of whatever the hell you got going on, and, you know what I mean, step in these classes and actually get yourself to work. And whatever it is that you're fighting that you feel like you can defeat, you can defeat it. You know what I mean? You definitely can defeat whatever you're going through. You just have to put yourself in position to be able to go through warfare. And that's all I'm gonna say with that. But we're gonna get back to the topic though. Um, so where we at? Where are we at? Let's see. We were um, we were with Christ. Okay, so it's Matthew's 3 and 13. Matthew's 3 and 13. So we are when John the Baptist is going to baptize Christ, and let's see what happens. All right. So the book of Matthew, chapter 3 and verse 13. Then cometh Yahushua from Galilee to Jordan unto John to be baptized of him. But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be baptized of thee, and comest thou to me? And Yahushua answering said unto him, Suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. So he's saying, suffer it. Like, he's pretty much saying, just do it. Like, I mean, yeah, I am the one that's supposed to be the one that's supposed to be doing what you're doing. I'm supposed to be, you know what I mean, baptizing the people or baptizing you because I am ranked over you. But just do it so that this can be the end all be all. That's pretty much what Christ is on right now. You know what I'm saying? So when you're in a situation like that, like, it's just like you see it. You know what I mean? If John the Baptist is saying that Christ is coming to baptize with fire, he's not coming to baptize with water. Why is it that your churches are still baptizing with water as if it's still effective? You know what I mean? And then when Christ steps on the scene, John the Baptist is just like, you know what I mean? Like, nah, I'm not even supposed to be baptizing you. You know what I mean? So this is not so much into like down talking John the Baptist, even though, you know what I mean, if you want to battle somebody who still is doing, you know what I mean, the water baptism, you can show that John the Baptist, he fell short of being a believer that Christ was the Messiah. John the Baptist falls short of that. John the Baptist does not, he falls short that Christ is actually the true Messiah. I don't know if it was out of bitterness or if it, you know what I mean, I'll ask that question tomorrow and during scripture breakdown, but you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it was just out of bitterness and he actually knew that he was a Messiah. He was just upset that at the fact that he was in prison, or that he just completely lost all faith while he was in prison, that Christ was the Messiah? I'm gonna ask that question in tomorrow, so we'll see exactly what's going on with that. But at the end of the day, he fell short of Christ being the Messiah as far as his perspective, because he sends out his disciples. Well, first of all, he continues to keep doing the water baptism after he does Christ, right? What was that? Hey, shalom. Yeah, shalom. What's going on? So I'll get that answer tomorrow. But as far as when it comes, he falls short, and he sends his disciples to question Christ, and we'll get into that too. So we getting into it. He says, "Suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness." And said, "Then he suffered him, and Yahushua, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the heavens were open unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, and lighting upon him, and lo, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." So all these things are happening during the time period of Christ being baptized by John the Baptist, right? Those are full-fledged signs that Christ is actually the Messiah. Christ is actually the real chosen sacrifice for Israel. You know what I mean? And then not just that, he's, you know what I mean, there's other characteristics to him that, you know what I mean, I don't really have too much time to get into, but, you know what I mean, all these things that were prophesied in the Old Testament that he is and he was, you know what I'm saying? And he will be. All those things, because they only had the Old Testament to follow during that time period. Though the New Testament wasn't even written at that time period. So, you know what I mean, everything that's written about Christ in the Old Testament, those prophecies were of him. Like that's what he was supposed to be. Like, and you know what I mean, it explains a lot of the things of why he knew he had to live a particular type of way. You know what I mean? So, okay, so that's Christ being baptized by John the Baptist. That should have been the end all be all when it came to baptisms. You know what I mean? Like everybody that got baptized after that, and then no doves flying, and with no heavens opening up, none of that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? With no voices in the clouds, none of that. None of that stuff happened. So Christ should have been the end all be all when it came to the baptism, because his baptism is a lot different. He's gonna baptize you with the Spirit, and his Spirit, you know what I mean, his Spirit is completely one West. You know what I'm saying? Completely one West. Like, it's just, you know what I mean, he walked into his situation prepared and ready to do exactly what it needed to be done to get the work done. So, you know what I mean, and he fulfilled what he needed to do. So let's get into where John the Baptist fell off at. So like it too. I didn't really have this class like prepared. I'm just more so just like winging it as I go. So what is it? Luke 7:18. Luke 7:18. Let's see if this is it. Okay, so this should be it. Okay, so let's get into. Okay, so John the Baptist is in prison. He sends his disciples to go question Christ. And what does Christ say? You know what I'm saying? Let's see what happens. So let's go to Luke 7 and verse 19. And it says, And John calling unto him two of his disciples. Two of his disciples sent them to Yahushua, saying, Art thou he that should come? Or look we for another? So that's what I want to get into. Is that sarcasm? Or is that just him really questioning the fact if Christ is truly the true Messiah or not? Losing faith of him or whatever. But what does he say again? He says, verse 19, it says, And John calling unto him two of his disciples sent them to Yahushua, saying, Art thou he that should come? or look we for another? So are you the one that's supposed to be coming? Was the one that was supposed to come be the Messiah, or should we be looking for somebody else? Because I mean, depending on what the reason he said that for, he's pretty much putting it out there like, really, like, I mean, what are you good for? Like, pretty much. So it says, or look we for another. When the men were come unto him, they said, John the Baptist hath sent us unto thee. So they go to Christ and they start questioning him because John the Baptist sent them out, sent two of his disciples out to go question Christ. Why he has disciples, and nobody knows. But I mean, obviously he wasn't following Christ because he has disciples himself still doing the same things he should have stopped doing already, and he should have been on Christ's side. Should have been 13 disciples instead of 12. But let's keep going. So it says, these saying, art thou he that should come? So they're asking him, are you the one that's prophesied to come, right? So, and it says, or look we for another. And it says, verse 21, and in that same hour he cured many of their infirmities and plagues, and of evil spirits, and unto many that were blind he gave sight. So he's doing all these miracles. He's showing them all of these miracles that he's doing because they came and questioned him, like, okay, so are you really the true Messiah? But I mean, what do I need to talk for? I'm going to show you. I mean, Christ didn't really have to say nothing. All those things that he did was already he was about that action. It was pretty much how I could put it. He was being about that action. He went into, instead of sitting over here trying to explain himself, he went into going and doing business as business should be done. You know what I'm saying? Right. So let's get into it. And it says, in that same hour he cured many of their infirmities and plagues, and of evil spirits, and unto many that were blind he gave sight. And on verse 22 it says, then Yahushua answering said unto them, go your way and tell. This is real important. All right, so this is verse 22, chapter 7 in Luke. And he says, go your way and tell John what things ye have seen and heard. You know what I mean? Because what he did was, instead of sitting over here trying to explain himself to make sure that everybody understood that he was the Messiah, he went about business. He got to work and showed that action was a lot louder than his words. Then he started to speak to him and let him know, like, let him know exactly what you've seen. So it's like, what ye have seen and heard, how that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, to the proof of the gospel is preached. So instead of you going and telling, asking me a question and me giving you the answer, go tell John what you've seen today. How about that? Go tell him about me making a blind person be able to have sight. Go tell them about me casting out a damn demon out of somebody. Person just sitting over here just being all whacked out and crazy, and you know what I mean. I caused them to just, now they're just normal, calm, and just cool and collective. You know what I'm saying? And a person who is probably crippled by birth. You know what I'm saying? Just couldn't walk since birth. Stand up and just walk off. Probably just like, you know what I mean, praising, like, you know what I mean, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, you know what I mean? Like situations like that, because these are very, very deep situations. You know what I mean? Imagine just being blind and all of a sudden, you know what I mean, you hear about, you know what I mean, that this person could cure your blindness, and you ended up traveling and making it to him. And now that person is standing in front of you, and they put their hands on like, just whatever Christ was doing. You know what I mean? Probably just put his hands on his eyes, and when he moved them, like, you could just see just nothing but light, like just bright lights. And this guy just like, God, like, sheesh, I can see now. Like, good Lord. You know what I mean? Just, you got to put yourself into those situations. Like this is what Christ was doing for the people during the time period he was. They said that Christ did so much miracles that you couldn't even fit it in a book. You know what I'm saying? So this was his day to day lifestyle of healing people who were, you know what I mean? It could be anything. It could be anything. You know what I mean? Like when people are going through something, they seek for help. And at that time period, we was in the same position in the ghettos and in poverty under somebody else's jurisdiction, under their laws and under their authority. And you know what I mean, we were in need just as well as we're in need right now for any type of for just salvation in general. We are in need of something or someone to save us out of this hellhole that we live in on our day to day lifestyle. We're in need of that. You know what I'm saying? So same way that was then is the same way that it is now. You know what I mean? So just think about all the people who needed something at that time period, needed help. You know what I mean? Needed some type of cure to something. You know what I mean? Like it's so many things that our people were desperate for at that time period. But just think if you had a person who was walking around that was the answers to your problems. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? If you don't have some type of, I'm not saying it's just all just physical issues. Like there's a lot of things, but just think that me going to this person was the solution to my issue. You know what I mean? Me personally going to this person was the solution to my child's issue or my mother's issue, my father's issue. Like whatever it was. You know what I mean? People were going to the Most High. Oh, I'm Salaki. People were going to Yahweh Shai Mashiach for the issue to their problems, and Christ spent a day in and day out of healing and doing the Lord's work. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So where were we at? We were so let's get to the last script and let's get to the last verse on this, and then we can just like you know what I mean. We can end it off at that. But so Christ tells he tells John's disciples, his two disciples, to just go to John and tell him what you've seen. I don't need to explain myself. I don't need to answer that question. Whether if you want to try to question me of what my stand is as far as who I am and what I'm doing. I don't need to answer these questions. You can go ahead and go tell them what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Tell them what I'm doing. Tell them exactly of what is going on as what you just seen just now within this hour, right? And then he said something very much important also. And let's get to it. So he says, "Go your way and tell John what things ye have seen and heard, how that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised. Golly. To the poor the gospel is preached, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me." So blessed is the person that sit over here and not going to feel some type of way about the things that I do, of how I do it. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to sit over here and try to question me about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Blessed is the ones that sit over here and have a comfort zone into what I'm doing. Have a pleasing into the things that I do. Blessed are the ones that do that, and the ones that are not offended. You know what I mean? Because John the Baptist was offended because he was in his predicament. He was dealing with his situations, but at the end of the day, he shouldn't have even been in his situations. He should have been with Christ while Christ was doing his thing. You know what I mean? That's where John the Baptist should have been. He should have been with Christ and with Christ's disciples. He shouldn't have been in the predicament of being put in position to be able to even be imprisoned. You know what I'm saying? He should have been with Christ, right? And if he was with Christ, that imprisonment probably more than likely wouldn't even happen. You know what I mean? But John the Baptist was in. prison and then eventually was beheaded and killed, you know what I mean, because a woman who, you know what I mean, was pretty much like lustful of him, wasn't able to have him, so she just like, okay, we'll just go ahead and kill him. So, and it says, verse 23, and says, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. And it says, verse 24, and when the messenger of John were departed, he began to speak unto the people concerning John. So, you know what I mean? The disciples left to go tell him exactly what was going on, but he went and talked to the people, like, and he says, what went ye out into the wilderness for to see a a reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment. Behold. So like, let me see if I can get the prophet. And I said unto you, let me see. Uh, okay, so yeah, so he's going to. Okay, well, we'll read verse 26 then. It says, "But what went ye out for to see a prophet? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and much more than a prophet. This is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee." And it says, verse 28, "For I say unto you." Let me highlight this real quick. Got this highlighted. And it says on verse 28, it says, "For I say unto you, among those that are born of women, there is not a greater prophet than John the Baptist." John the Baptist was the greatest, one of the greatest prophets. You know what I'm saying? But he that is but he that is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. And that's all because of the action he chose to do as far as going to send people to question Christ, whether if he was the true Messiah or not. You know what I'm saying? Or are we waiting for another? Now, I'll get the answer as far as whether if that was sarcasm or if because he was put in a position where he was in prison, or I'll get that tomorrow. I'll definitely ask that question tomorrow during class. But as far as what you see right now, Christ is saying that he will be least in the kingdom. Now, if you're following the ways of John the Baptist, when God, if you're following the ways of John the Baptist, when God gave him the instruction to baptize people in water until Christ comes on the scene, which is what he was supposed to stop. You know what I'm saying? And he didn't stop. And then not just that, he didn't follow Christ, and he got himself put in a position where he was eventually, you know what I mean, killed. You know what I'm saying? If you're still following those ways of that water baptism, then that just shows that something is wrong with your doctrine. Something is wrong with the things that a person is trying to teach you. If a person is teaching you that the water baptism is still effective, and John the Baptist himself, who originated it, told you himself that, yeah, I will baptize you in water, but there's come somebody that's after me that's greater than me, whose shoes I'm not even worthy enough to latch. Like, he's coming to baptize you in fire. Okay, so if the Bible's teaching, if the Bible's saying that, the scriptures are saying that, that means that something is wrong with your doctrine. Something is wrong with the person who's teaching you that, you know what I mean, come get in this nice little white robe and we're gonna dunk you in this water and then you'll be forgiven for all your sins. You know what I mean? Obviously there's something wrong with your doctrine. You know what I mean? There's something wrong with something that person is teaching you, because obviously the scriptures are telling you that there's something different. And not just that, Christ said that John the Baptist will be least in the kingdom of heaven. You know what I'm saying? Because of him being so great and then still turning away from the what was actually supposed to happen, which was written in the scriptures of what Christ was supposed to be. The prophecies of Christ. You know what I'm saying? He turned away from that and he ignored all those things, and he still decided that, you know what I mean, I'm in this terrible position, so I'm going to question him and try to see whether if he truly really is, even though he said himself, and when we had in our beginning of the scriptures, that, you know what I mean, of how great Christ is and is supposed to be. but he still questioned him to say like, "Oh yeah, well, I really don't think that you are who you saying you are." And that was, you know what I mean, that put him in a position where he was where he was at. But even though John was great, it still was just like, all right, well, you know what I mean, you forgot about the whole purpose of the situation. Christ was the sacrifice. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, regardless of how great your works were, it didn't matter because you didn't acknowledge the fact that Christ was the true Messiah. You know what I mean? So with that, I would say, you know what I mean, if you still have some type of some following into your churches and you feel like there's still something that should take you away from that doctrine within itself, because the people who you look at as supposed to be the people who knows the scriptures and knows the law and everything like that, they are teaching you something that is outside of the true word of the Bible. You should not be doing any type of water baptisms. You should not be doing any of that, because those things were supposed to end when Christ came on the scene. Christ came on the scene. Christ sacrificed his day in and day out life, and Christ sacrificed his life in general to his last breath. You know what I'm saying? And he was the sacrifice for Israel. And now, because of him, Israel has a chance to be able to be back into position of rulership over all nations that are against the Most High, and over all nations that are not of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know what I mean? Now we have that we have that opportunity to be able to be put back at rulership, be put back in the high zone. Who doesn't want to live in Calabasas? Who doesn't want to live in Bel Air and that type of scenery, Hawaii, and you know what I mean? Those type of elegant places that you have to be at high stature in order to be able to even live in. Like, who doesn't want those things? And that's what we're supposed to. That's the position that we're supposed to be in. That's a position that all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are supposed to be in. But we have been tricked and falsely, you know what I mean, and indoctrinated from so many things that we don't even know how to even serve the Most High anymore. You know what I mean? So now it's time for us to get into this one body, this one West, and actually figure out the real true meaning of what it is to really be baptized, what it is to really change and really do exactly what you need to do as far as like being able to serve the Most High, to be able to work and be in work to put yourself in the position to be in rulership. Now we know. So it's up for us to put all those excuses down, put all of those things that, you know what I mean, that hinder us down, and actually put ourselves in position where we can be able to be sober minded and be vigilant enough to be able to serve the Most High and have fear for the Most High to the point where we can do everything on key, on point, right, and without no blemishes. You know what I'm saying? But all with all that, the water for tuning in. Shalom. Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Barak thumb to the brothers. Yahweh Shamar and the thumb Bashim Yahshua to the sisters. The water for tuning in.